This podcast is brought to you by the United States government. In God, we trust.
Cheech. No.
What?
We, the people, as in you and I, lovingly bring you this podcast every month.
Oh, yes, that's right. In case you didn't know, your favorite co-host sisters,
Cheech and Nibby,
pay for everything.
equipment costs,
Us.
Zencaster recording software,
Us.
treats for Moosh,
Us. Wait, have you been writing that off as a business expense?
You get the point. We've come this far being self-supporting, but for sustainability and longevity, we know interdependence is key.
Yes. So, leaning on our community, we've decided the best course of action is for Issa to start selling feet pics.
Wait, what?
Just kidding. We launched a Patreon. If you love this podcast and want to keep it on the waves, consider going over to patreon.com/rippleeffectpod. As always, that's affect with an A.
Yes. Become a member and receive your insider goodies, not feet pics, show notes, and community support every single month. And even if you don't become a member, head over there anyways, because there's a free membership that allows you access to a very important, highly academic, vital survey titled, "What's Your Favorite Donut?"
Right. Please join us over there and become a member of our Patreon community. Thank you for your ongoing support.
And survey participation.
You're listening to The Ripple Affect with your hosts, Cheech and Nibby, a podcast that explores how individual change has the capacity to affect the whole.
From neuroscience to donuts, we're two sisters with a deep curiosity for ancient wisdom and modern knowledge, and we're obsessed with learning alongside you because we don't know. Let's dive in.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Ripple Effect podcast. This is Kiara, Cheech, and in today's episode, as a part of our SOFA series, I got to sit down with my dear friend, a global educator who specializes in transformative perspectives such as decoloniality, somatic experiencing, and is one of the top authorities in the Akashic Records. Helen Vonderheide is an Akashic Records teacher, integrating somatic experiencing with over 11 years of experience guiding students and practitioners in accessing the clarity, healing, and wisdom of the Akashic Records. She has created several original Akashic bodies of work grounded in personal authorship, creative expression, and the expansion of intuitive knowing. She integrates the nervous system and somatic awareness to support deeper alignment with soul-level potential. Her approach is rooted in embodiment, relationship, and presence, helping students translate spiritual knowing into a grounded, rational, and lived experience. What you're going to hear is a conversation that flows from demystifying the Akashic Records, moving beyond psychic readings and into the realms of embodied knowing, to how Helen developed and taught her own methodologies for accessing the Akashic Records. She shares personal stories of how this work sparked major life changes, all while building two powerful bodies of work: Pathways of the Heart, and the newly emerging intergenerational biofield healing. We also explore how the Akasha intersects with somatic healing, ancestral memory, and nervous system regulation, offering a grounded and nuanced entry point into the realm often brushed off as woo-woo. If you're curious about the Akashic Records, or if you don't even know what that means, this episode is going to give you access to a huge unseen resource from the top authority in the field. Okay, let's get into it. I'm just delighted to have you, Helen. Welcome to the podcast, but also it's so good to see you, just saying. And I'm really genuinely excited to introduce you to my community. You're just one of the most special people in my life. I'm overjoyed to share you and everything that comes with you, all your information, your knowledge, your wisdom, your experiences, your teaching. You're such a profound, beautiful teacher in my life. So welcome. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me and allowing me to have this conversation with you and connect with your community, your network. I just feel really honored and blessed. Thank you, Kiara.
Oh, yay. Okay, I'm like brimming though, excited to talk to you. We were just chatting pre-recording about all the things we want to get into. Maybe start at the beginning. My very first Akashic Record session was with Helen. She was the first to introduce this work to me, and then continued to be a profound teacher, as I said. But starting at the beginning is, if you've never heard of the Akashic Records, if you're going, what is that word? What does that mean? What are they talking about? I think that would be a good place to start. And I tried so many times, even on this podcast, I think I might have even edited it out a couple times because I fumble profoundly. I fumble when trying to be like, well, let me explain what I do. How do you share about what it is that you do?
Oh my gosh. Well, back in the day, I would go launch into this like whole formal explanation of what the Akasha, the Akashic Records are. But now the first place that I like to start is to recognize the Akashic Records or the Akasha as an ontological lens.
Oh, what's that word mean?
So, ontology is this way that you experience reality. And the best way to describe ontology is to sort of associate things with a lens. So, the Akashic Records as a lens, science as a lens, physics as a lens, so it's really anything that people experience through that shapes their reality. Starting there, this word that we use, Akasha, which is Sanskrit, translates to ether. So essentially what we're doing when we access the Akashic Records is we're experiencing our reality through an etheric lens, a non-physical lens, an energetic consciousness lens. And what's amazing about that is through my research over the last few years, I've been able to identify what people call the Akashic Records in their respective professions. So, of course, in science and physics, they know the Akasha as the 0 point field. They also call it ZPF. And in medicine, they know the Akasha as the biofield. So it's essentially the energetic or etheric. They probably would never say etheric, but it's the non-physical aspect of our material body. So that part of like my research over the last few years has been really fun because I think that I personally have pigeonholed myself when I've talked about the Akashic Records because I only talked about it through a spiritual lens.
Yes. Okay, first of all, I haven't talked to you in a while. I'm so grateful because we've geeked out about this for years together. I've studied with you for so long and worked in the Akasha for a very long time together. You've been dedicated to empirical validation of our work, which is so meaningful to me because I feel very shy because I'm a science guy, but I'm a spiritual girl, too. And those two parts of me finding the interweave has been important to me, but you've really dedicated to this. And it feels to me, one of my goals, as I've told you, it's like always to make it accessible.
Yes.
To not make it so where like someone who's corporate, non-spiritual would be like, no, that's not my thing. I don't have any use for it because it's such a valuable resource.
Yeah. So, one of the things that really stuck out was that you said making this work accessible. And I think the way that we do that is really speaking into the way that someone does experience the reality. So, depending on what field of study or interest they're coming from, it's easier for you to present the Akasha as a resource so that somebody can go deeper in their life or the way that their life is sort of unfolding and looking in their life. Making it more accessible kind of starts with the first body of work that I created, which was supporting people in creating their own pathway or invocation to access this field. They get to really incorporate the vocabulary, the language of these connections into this way of really deliberately accessing this field. Whether those are physical or non-physical, it's really just being intentional about accessing the consciousness, the frequency, the energy.
I think something really important you just said is it's not just accessing information, because I can get lumped in with psychic readings, or the word readings has for a very long time made me not cringe, but just a little, that's not what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons I realized why was because a reading indicates that somehow you're taking information from somewhere and then regurgitating it and giving it over. And the focus becomes on the words, the content, the giving information to someone. But in my experience, it's more than that because, and I'm not saying more in like better, like quantitative form, it's in the same way somatics are more than just psychological therapy or talk therapy. It's this, the embodiment, the experiencing of that love and that compassion and that understanding, that pointing to yourself really, that you can have those feelings for yourself, regardless of your circumstances or what you're going through. So I just really liked that distinction that you're pointing to. So thank you.
I really appreciate that because, on this note of kind of getting lumped in with like psychics or mediums, there are blurred lines because sort of in this category of practitioners, readers, are we accessing this subtle energy to predict, or are we accessing this energy to be resourceful or to grow and to really develop into who we are meant to become in this lifetime? I personally access the Akashic field so that I can grow and become who I am here to become. And working with predictions with the Akasha is that it's like hit or miss.
Yep.
And so that doesn't make the resource, the Akashic resource, a valuable resource. It makes it an entertaining resource. And that is not the work that I am doing. So I've had to really create a distinction between the work that I do with the Akasha and accessing this field so that we can predict from it, because that is not a stable, fluctuating read, because our free will really is sort of like intertwined and woven throughout the information that we access from the Akasha.
Yeah, and the 0 point field, right? This quantum field, which isn't really the accurate name for it. 0 point field is the accurate name for it, but it's kind of referenced in general nomenclature as the quantum field, right?
Right.
But this 0 point field contains the existence of all possibilities.
Right.
And the way I have seen it, I'll say the scene because it's like a visual in my mind, but it's more like a felt sense. When people ask about the future, is that there is like a curtain of possibilities. And there are certain places on that 0 point field that light up, but they aren't destined. They're like, well, if you kind of do these kind of things, you could probably end up there. Or you kind of do these kind of things, you could kind of end up there. And that's why it's unfolding with you, through you, with you, for you, by you,
Yes.
And it's interactive. And I think that's where that word co-creative kind of comes from.
Yeah.
But there's not a control to it. There's, little by little, like you said, growth and understanding. And I think that's where that distinction of a non-predictive, used for oracle of divination.
Right.
Which is such, to me, not outdated and like disrespectful, but just such a like, God, it just sounds woo-woo.
I know. I just feel like woo-woo is such a disservice to the Akasha.
Yeah.
And maybe the Akasha doesn't even care. Like, it's like, yeah, sure, call me woo-woo or whatever, But like, I feel like, oh my God, what I know of working with the Akasha, like, that is not what this is.
Yeah. And let's talk about that, because I came to this work knowing you. I met you as you were beginning to find your journey as a practitioner pretty early on, I think.
Yeah.
And you introduced me to this work. And then I followed as you started to set up classes and bring teachers to the West Coast to learn more for yourself. And I was like, I'm in. I want to know how to do this for myself. It was so valuable. It was so profound. And if there's a way that I can just have access, yes. And then I continued to follow you as then you progressed beyond being a practitioner into teaching and developing curriculum. And why I say all that is because I want people to understand that your dedication and leadership in this specific practitionership and then into teaching is very dedicated, thorough, and very earnest. And you put in the time and the work, and to be a leader in this work also. You have brought people access to this and brought people together around this in the community of LA and beyond. That I think is really important to distinguish for people, to understand how long you've been doing this, how involved you've been, how deep you've gotten into this,
Mhm.
and how many fucking sessions you've had. Because as you know, as practitioners, we're only as good as our own experiences. How long we've been doing it means just that we've got to work with a lot of people and seen a lot of different angles and been able to dive deeper and deeper in this work. And you both personally and professionally have gone above and beyond anyone that I know in this work. So all that said, I wanted to start getting into like your journey in this and what you've developed to, like you said, kind of distinguish it experientially for yourself as beyond just a woo-woo thing.
Yeah. Oh my God, this is so fun. Yeah. And immediately what comes to mind is to share some chronological bullet points along the way.
Sure.
So Kiara and I both learned how to access the Akashic Records through Linda Howe's prayer.
Linda Howe is a foremost Akashic Record teacher, and she has the Linda Howe Center for Akashic Studies.
Yeah, it's been such an incredible journey, and I'm so grateful for Linda's work because that was my introduction to meeting Akasha. It was through her prayer that I created this very deliberate exchange. And when I sort of opened up to the connection, was able to hear the guiding forces in the Akasha, like speaking so clearly, so loudly, not yelling, but just so like apparent that I was hearing something from some other dimension or realm or, body of consciousness. And then over the several years of teaching Linda's work, and receiving feedback from the students I shared the work with, I was teaching this one size fits all method that naturally did not fit everyone. People's relationships to words, to guiding forces, to where they're wanting to access in the Akasha or what they're wanting to access in the Akasha wasn't fitting into this one size fits all method. And then so, of course, the first body of work that I created was personal pathways. It was so that people could create their own invocation to access the records. So during the time where I was first sharing that body of work and that you are a part of, something really interesting happened. There's 5 practitioner levels. And in the 3rd level, as I was sharing this, the information that I received from my records was centered around a blueprint, like accessing a blueprint that I could materialize, a blueprint around a life partnership, like a romantic life partnership.
And when you say blueprint,
Yeah.
what do you mean?
Yeah, I know, because it's such a generic term. The alternate word that comes to me is constellation. So when you think about the cosmos and you see a constellation in the sky, such as Little Dipper, Big Dipper, what you see are these very prominent points of light that are ultimately creating some kind of a form in the formless. So when I use the term blueprint, I'm kind of referring to the same thing. There is this formless map, so to speak, that has some prominent points that create form, but the way that you go about experiencing it or perceive it is really personal to you. Like nobody's going to see my constellation the same way I see my constellation. So I very generically use the word blueprint because an architect can work with a blueprint and essentially turn something that is formless into form.
Oh, I love that. It's the idea I had
Yeah.
the idea of a home because I have an interior design background and an architectural program I went through, like ideas of an essence of a building that you want to create. And then you start to sketch and you start to do these things and you crystallize it, going further and further into, at some point, you're drawing up blueprints and plans that have all these technical pieces to it of like a lighting design and what are your textures going to be, what's your floor, what's your ceiling. There's all these layers to blueprints that all together an architect will take that and start to get the materials and the actual physical things pull together. The construction crew start to understand the math behind how is this actually going to, is this possible to construct and then go to work for months and months, depending on how big the building is, right? But my point is that the non-material idea I had and the essence of this is what this house would feel like, this is how this would be, after letting that guide me and putting things down, then the architect takes it and makes it real. I crossed that threshold into something tangible. And that's what you were talking about. So you saw this blueprint for
like life partnership.
That's right.
Yeah. And then the second blueprint that I saw was essentially creating a body of work where I could support other people on their partnering journeys and bringing in life partnership or partnerships. And so it was like twofold. It was like, all right, Helen, you're going to do this for yourself. And you're also going to figure out how to put it into a body of work so that you can help others do the same. Now, it is from an Akashic perspective. So it's coming from this quantum perspective, this place of like not being attached, a place of healing, learning, growing. So when I teach that work, it's really important for me to support people in that understanding. Like, you're not going through this program like to get through it and then be at the end and like think that like life partnership is at the end. Like, it is a partnering path. It's a journey. It's taking you from one place to the other. It's not a destination. So it's like really just being on this journey and experiencing love in its allness while knowing you're not meant to settle. So Pathways of the Heart. So what's interesting is, okay.
And that's what it's called, Pathways of the Heart.
Yes.
And it got born out of, just so I'm tracking these bullet points, it got born out of your first curriculum that you were teaching, guiding others to their own personalized access into and process of access into the Akashic field. And from your own work, you're saying what came to you in that process was this other coursework and this other personal journey that you were on. Wow.
I know. It is so wild because I never really envisioned myself being a student of my own work, but now looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, of course I would be a student of my own work. Like, I'm not here to teach this. It is coming through me and people are receiving it and they'll turn it into whatever it wants to be turned into.
That's been my experience as well, because I've developed coursework inside the Akasha. And when I was taking your pathway coursework, I went through that curriculum and I too, had this blueprint of what to teach and creating something from idea to crystallizing it. This podcast became all the things because what I was looking for was something that could teach me to help me grow, but I could be of service, that I could help others, that I could build community that would have meaning. It'd be a way for me to come out of my shell, to share, not be closeted about what I have to offer. And all of those things came together and I'm experiencing this, I really do believe, because of a huge spark that was lit in your coursework there. So I want to hear about how you worked with your blueprint in the partnership and then this Akashic work. And I know there's one, I know because I know you and we talk, there's another level to this evolution of this work. So
yeah. Oh my goodness. So in the third level, the third class, you're working together with the Akasha to reveal this essential blueprint, this constellation. So I received these two pieces of information. And at the same time, you're working with the Akasha to create a strategy and practices so that you can strengthen your clear senses in materializing this blueprint. So I received the strategy, and the strategy for me was self-care. It was like, Helen, you need to take care of yourself. And that needs to be like 1/3 of your responsibility of lifing, like of humaning. So like focus on that and be engaged in just like connecting, meeting people, dating people, and look at that as a path of making friends. There's no attachment. You're not looking for anything in the end, but you're just kind of in it and you're learning about yourself through these experiences.
Which is very process-based, going back to what you were saying, that it's this journey. And I find over and over again that the Akasha does seem to have the consistent theme of guidance is there is value in the process, and results are not really what this is about.
Yes.
Not, like you said, not settling for never having kind of what it is that's going to satisfy you. No, it's actually the opposite, but it seems to be this hack that's offered of like, if you focus in the process and are satisfied with the process and really focused there, there's so much that gets revealed that allows you to walk an aligned path toward the probability of things being in your highest good and the highest good for all. I really truly feel after a long time working in the Akasha that though that is a central thematic way in which sharing comes through.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because I think that now when I look back, I did receive so much value. And at the same time, it's almost as if I was my own research project. Like, I don't even know if it's possible to like be the observer and the observed, but I certainly was going through that. And I was like, wow, I am the guinea pig here. And while I was on this partnering journey, I started to receive the curriculum around pathways of the heart. Like, it was almost as if I couldn't receive the body of work if I was not experiencing it, because I was writing from that place of experience. Basically, pathways of the heart, in short, is where I help someone create a pathways of the heart invocation, very clearly outlining what someone wants, what they know to be true of everything that comprises them. And they create this invocation that allows them to access their physical and their etheric heart for like everything that their invocation is presenting and embodying. And it's like this very wild experience of like, oh, this is what I want. But the invocation is like, and this is everything that you are. Like, people have experienced this very embodied way of how or what their heart energy wants to experience. So that's why I was saying in the end, it's like this journey is about aligning your human and soul expression. Through my experimenting with it, I've realized that it's best suited for a one-on-one container. It just allows us to go so much more deeper. When I was on the 11th session, that is where I came into alignment with now my life partner. And that was a little bit of a surprise, because when my records told me that they were revealing this essential blueprint to life partnership, I kind of was like, yeah, right. And I can't bank on that because I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to be let down. I don't want to be disappointed. And they were like, you don't need to take us seriously. Just focus on your self-care and you'll see. And the way my partner came into the picture, it was such a surprise. Like, the first 2 months were friendship. And then couple months into that, our relationship really shifted. And then that's where we started to experience like the romantic component of our connection. But then it just continued to expand even more. There was such a deep knowing of, I am meant to spend my life with this person, something that he felt as well. And so then in the end, with Pathways of the Heart, I wanted to convey that same kind of experiential knowing. The knowing is so crystallized, it's so embodied that you just can't even second guess yourself.
I feel like what you're describing is also the creative heart and the spiritual heart,
Yeah.
right? A knowing that no one can take away from me, an understanding and a feeling of safety and security inside that understanding that I don't need anybody else.
Yeah.
So what I like about what you're sharing about this Pathways of the Heart is it feels like it has a directional shape of being able to really get to know yourself,
Mm-hmm.
to really understand yourself better. And doesn't that make so much sense when looking to try to find partnership? Because if you can understand your heart, if you can understand yourself, and you can, I'm assuming, learn to love that, understanding, compassion, all those things, then going into partnership from that space feels like it can up the probabilities of a meaningful, deep relationship, because you're essentially cultivating a meaningful, deep relationship with yourself and utilizing the Akasha field to amplify, enhance, partner. It's not like directorial, like they tell you what to do and you have to go do it or else there's consequences. It's not that. But using that feels really powerful. So go on. Tell me more.
Yeah, you're right. And it is such a creational field that we access and we work with. And, for so many years I've said, like, the Akasha doesn't tell us what to do. It makes suggestions and then we get to choose. Those suggestions feel appropriate. If it's not resonant or within our means, like, we don't do it,
Yeah. I've never had an experience where I didn't do something that was suggested and then I go back into the Akasha to continue to examine this topic or whatever I'm struggling with. And then there's this like, oh, well, you should have done what we said, or you should. I mean, that's never, not once. There's just more guidance, information, wisdom, of like, oh yeah, no, okay. Let's now examine, because you chose to do this. Now let's examine where the options opened up here, and let's examine where this could be. What's this perspective? What's this angle you can look at it from? Like, it's just an opening process in my experience.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, what it opened up for me was essentially this pathway for a new body of work.
Oh.
So.
Oh, can I just say that you have moved in with your partner, you create a home space together, and you are now engaged with this person? Like, I just wanted to like kind of contextualize some of this love journey that you spoke briefly about, to say that I've known you as a friend, and it was I celebrated so big with you when I heard that news.
Yes, no, I think that's so important because there's so many gifts on the partnering journey. Whatever they look like, there's so many gifts to celebrate. And I think coming together with my partner, we started to realize that we had been in some kind of communication all along. And that, like, omniversally, like, there were forces that needed to come together to really bring us together, because I moved from Los Angeles to Baltimore City, where he lives. And quite honestly, like, it would have taken an act of God to get me out of Los Angeles.
I was so surprised when you moved. And when you said you were moving to Baltimore City, I was like, what? This makes no sense. And yet you were like, I know, but that's where I'm going. This is what we're doing.
Yeah, it's surreal, because if I hadn't come, like, I wouldn't have connected with this person that I know I'm meant to build my life with, that I am building my life with. So it was such a gift.
So you were saying that you had what emerged from that experience of.
Yes.
You said a new curriculum came to you?
Yes. So Pathways of the Heart has a few presuppositions. We're using an Akashic lens to explore someone's partnering path. You are not limited to the one. Another presupposition is talking about a loving system. So this is a little bit of a play on words from a living system. So a loving system is comprised of etheric, biological, genetic, and evolutionary roots. What I discovered along the way is that we always have partners available to us. Like, because we are living on this material plane, there is always someone or someone's for us. So when I started to learn a little bit more about this loving system, particularly going into the biological, genetic, evolutionary components of a loving system, because the etheric part is like, oh, I've had so many years experience working with the etheric, right? But like the biological, genetic, and evolutionary, like this is something new. So naturally, I started to experience a lot of body issues, injuring myself, unique and unusual physical symptoms, pain, sensations, like all these like body things started to arise.
Yeah, it's kind of like the way the brain works where you buy a new red car and then all you see is a bunch of red cars, right? Just to emphasize what you're talking about is that there is a very real correlation in my experience where when you start to explore the physical body, more comes up into awareness.
Yeah.
This physical body is such an incredible, sophisticated system. Where there's so much to know and experience, especially if there's ailments. There's a lot to understand about hormones, about just fascia, about just so many things, so many components. So I just wanted to like share my, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. No, Kiara, you are so on point because that's exactly what happened. Like my body awareness and my like sensing of what was sort of percolating and moving in my body, it was so heightened. And what's interesting is that I experienced a series of like several body things. So and I'm going to be really, really raw and honest. And, so here we go. Here I am.
If you're comfortable, yeah. Make space.
So when we moved in together, I developed sciatica on my left side, like extremely debilitating sciatica. And then I think like a week later, I injured and sprained my ankle very badly. And so my whole left, like kind of like hip and leg were out of commission for several months and still are like not back to the same and like healing almost a year later. In addition to that, several months later, there was a shooting in my neighborhood and it was very, very close. I was walking home and I heard it and it was very jarring. And so I experienced another sciatica flare up, like extremely debilitating again, where like I couldn't even lift my leg to walk. And then in addition to that, Mike and I are being really intentional about creating a family together. And I like triggered my body into perimenopause. So
Whoa.
my cycles are extremely imbalanced. So there's just been like all this body stuff that I'm like going through over this last year. But I do not feel overwhelmed or intimidated. It feels like an invitation to get really curious, to go deeper. And it also has created this bridge where I can now take myself from Pathways of the Heart, like into this new body of work that's starting to, come into form, which you mentioned, but it's.
I don't think I mentioned the name yet. But.
Yeah, you haven't mentioned the name. So, so there's a few different components to like, what this new work is that emerged. The first is I needed to create an invocation, kind of like a personal pathway to access the records. Like I needed to create a pathway to work with the body. So I started teaching personal pathways, like the foundational work, started teaching it again. And like this really has been such an amazing container for me to share and to also like be in and learn from. So while I was in this container sharing the work, I received this pathway to work with the body. So the first class is where you're starting to attune to your pathway. Then in the second class, you develop it. So when I was teaching the second class, I developed 2 pathways to work with the body. The first one, it is accessing a lot of different components. And then from there's a few things that emerged in class 3. So again, we accessed the essential blueprint in class 3. So what came through was this new way of working with the body to facilitate a harmonized intersection with all of the different components of the body and energetic fields of the body. It's called intergenerational biofield healing.
Ooh,
I know.
tell me more.
So right now, it's just a one-on-one session because I'm sort of in the experimental phase of it. My feeling or sense is that, intergenerational biofield healing is a new teacher of mine. And it's like come into my life to teach me. The first thing that I do is access the 11 systems of the body, the main meridian channels of the body, as well as all the sensations of the body. So the pathway invokes that so that they are very present, available, active, communicative component of the session. And then from there, I have 8 steps in a sequence that I move through. As we're moving through it, the person on the receiving end has to share with me what's coming up for them. So the session acts like conversation. We are accessing the Akasha in an embodied form.
Ooh.
And it comes through the form of someone's like human vessel. To really approach working with the Akasha in this love-based way, really wanting to fully embody whatever my body is trying to teach me or to share with me. A lot of what we're working with is the somatics of the body. And then we just allow the sensation to kind of weave through all these different bullet points in the healing sequence and tell us the story and essentially move into its own integration process. When we're moving through the healing sequence, what tends to open up through the sensations subtle field is access to intergenerational impressions.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that was inherited? Most of the time, yes. So as we're moving through the sequence, like this intergenerational field just naturally opens up. And when I was working with my records around naming this new work, I was like, just biofield healing. And they were like, it's an intergenerational biofield healing. And I'm like, that's too long. We call it IBH for short. Too long. I don't want it, But now what I'm realizing with this new teacher of mine, the intergenerational biofield healing as a teacher, is that, oh no, it absolutely has everything to do with this intergenerational component and like what is inherited and what we're holding and carrying. And then we create this like harmonized, interconnected field of all these different layers. And then we move through the sequence and we get down to like, the second to last or the last part. And it's all about integration. And we just ask our body, like at that point, someone is so in tune with their physical body and the somatic, like the embodied knowing, that we just are straightforward and ask the body, how long is it going to take to integrate this healing? And the body will tell us. As I've kind of been checking in with people along the way, people have really said doing the work, like doing the intergenerational biofield healing, like has created a deeper sense of grounding, calm, but it also is still, again, another process.
Yes, but sign me up. Like, yes, tomorrow, now. What? Yes, because, I got so excited. This work, it makes so much sense that this is the next evolutionary step in your work. What really inspired me from what you were sharing is just how intelligent the body is, meaning there's so much intelligence in us. And there's so much intelligence. That's a word that Uncle Bruce talked about naming as the whole field. It's like intelligence, it's a field of intelligence. Everything is this. It has intelligence. And the access to the body's intelligence. And if someone doesn't know about somatics, I just before I understood what somatics was, I think I had a huge gap in my ability to help myself and to really tune in with what is going on with me, but also specifically to really get to some of the roots of my own conflicts, meaning what was maybe holding me in place. I won't say holding me back, but holding me in place in conflict with what I personally maybe wanted to be moving forward with, And so when you talk about intergenerational, I am so glad to hear you and your Akashic field be able to guide you to that, because talk about a tangible thing. And I think it gets diluted inside of the woo languaging of your ancestors and your lineages and all these things that people don't know what the fuck that really means. They're just using those words. I don't mean to get kind of aggressive about it, but I kind of feel that way because in my experience, the epigenetics are there. Inside your DNA sequence does exist every single shared DNA piece of anyone who helped create you to this time. We all have a mother and a father. And whether we were raised by that unit or not raised by that unit, it has effects on us. Having an absent father has an effect on you. Having a father who is there but abusive has an effect on you. And those people were raised by people who were raised by people. That has not just trickled down, but that has an effect on us. Why am I the way that I am? It's because I have two huge influences in my life called my parents. And they had theirs, but why I had mine was because they had theirs. And they were reacting to that and so forth and so back. And I think to be able to access this, that is a benefit of the Akasha and myself working inside it for myself and as a practitioner, is that it opens up beyond your own conscious experience. Meaning you have access to information and experiential knowledge that you on your own might not be able to get with your neurological pathways the way that they are. And so to be able to expand into the access of an intergenerational situation, but having it be your body telling you, this is just making so much sense to me.
Yeah, Kiara, oh my goodness. In terms of the definition of somatic, simply is talking about of the body as opposed to the mind and spirit. As I mentioned earlier, it is this new way of experiencing the Akasha in this embodied way. And when you are accessing your ancestors' experiences, the genetic history of you. And what's so fascinating about that is that there's no denying at that point, the validity of someone's knowing, because this opened up a new world for me, and one that I did not confidently feel like I was well versed in. But I chose to embark on somatic experiencing, which is nervous system regulation work, and specifically with Peter Levine's Somatic Experiencing International. That was my first introduction to somatics. It opened up something where I was able to track how the work was actually materializing in my body. But if I had tracked it in kind of a singular moment, I'd be oh, this work isn't working, But when I took a step back and I'm 3 years later, oh, wow, there's significant shifts in my relationship with myself and my body. And so I decided to go back, to continue my education and do this work. And so I'm starting this program in the spring this year in New York City for 3 years. What I'm starting to develop and create with Pathways of the Heart, the intergenerational biofield healing, is that I really need more of a deeper understanding of the anatomy and the physiology of the physical body, so that I can almost like bridge that into like all this other work that's been developed and created to bridge the etheric and the empirical. Of course, like I'm going to bridge those, but I still have these like 3 years ahead of me where there's going to be so much more experimenting and developing and figuring out like, what are these ways that we can experience an embodied Akasha,
That's
an
amazing.
embodied knowing?
What are more ways
Mm.
that we can experience the Akasha, the embodied Akasha? And I love it as a question because it's called the healing arts in work with massage therapy, in work with somatics. It is an art. They're starting to really prove that talk therapy and the mind can bring you pretty far. But until you get into the body, we don't have the complete picture of healing, right? Of change. The spiritual is art. And where it can get funky is where people start to be like, no, spiritual is the way. No. All you need is your crystals and your theta healing every once in a while. Like, okay, if that's working for you, I do honestly, I'm like, good, that's working for you. And you have the partnerships that you want, and you have the income that you're needing to provide for yourself, so you're healthy in that way and your body's healthy, and you have figured that is your fit. But if there's still things going on, I think there's a bigger, more complex picture. And why I draw the attention of it being an art is it's like, because there's always more to explore in art. And for me, I think that's more close to like spiritual things, is calling it the spiritual arts. So I was going to shift slightly because I wanted to personally ask you, with all of your experience, some of the kind of basics of why we founded this podcast. It's a podcast to help myself and my sister understand, how do we change? And the Akasha has been such an agent of change for me. And being a practitioner has been an agent of change for me. But from where you are right now, I want to kind of go into what's something you know or feel about change that you think people could benefit from also knowing.
This decolonial work that I've explored for 2 years now. I've been in a decolonial program for 2 years. And it was in that program where I learned about ontology. One of the things that I took away from the program was how to cultivate a decolonial lens. What's extraordinary about that, we take on a living systems perspective. Nothing and no one is superfluous. It is a system within systems. And a decolonial lens also explores what other realities are possible. So when I think about change and the intention behind the work that you and your sister are doing with the podcast, I immediately come back to lenses that we acquire through our relationships that are essentially shaping the way that we're experiencing our reality. And if we start to take away one of those lenses, I was like, oh my God, who am I even anymore? Like, it was very destabilizing for me. But then that's why I chose to do a second year, because I was like, okay, I need to hold myself. Who is this person in this body? I experienced changes at a cellular level, at a somatic level, started to experience all these changes that I wouldn't have otherwise experienced if I didn't start to play with like the lens theory, like that's just my own, I'm making that word up, but it was like, that's kind of how I started to play with it. And that for me really started to invoke change. But the way the material world was responding to me, it was like we're playing together. Like agency, or like, life force, or, human beings, or whatever. Like it just became this like mutual playfulness. Like I don't have another word to
No,
describe.
I love that word.
That's the biggest way that I've been able to experience change.
I love this so much, Helen. Thank you for sharing that. When you said you started to feel that you were playing with the world, can you recall an example of what that was?
Yeah. Okay. In our field work in the decolonial program, what we're looking for is where a living system has met the edge of a colonial system. So, for example, in Baltimore City, which is like in my neighborhood in particular, we have a lot of brick roads. And these brick roads are paved. And there's this one sidewalk in particular where there's also trees that are growing in the sidewalk. And the trees are actually uprooting the bricks. So that was one of the first things I noticed. It was like where this sort of colonial authority or supremacy lays down itself, over a living system, but how over time, like there's truly nothing that can like keep at bay or hold a living system from growing and expanding. So I started to see myself as that kind of consciousness where, yes, there have been authoritative projections, imprints, beliefs like placed upon me, but I am an organism, like I am a life force. So if those things have been placed on me as an organism, then there certainly was this opening for me to like move beyond like what was creating that suppressed experience. So when I started to like lift those like and even at times like unconscious like limitations, then I started to really see myself more and more as a part of a living system. And then that's when I started to experience the playfulness, the entanglement, like, oh, I'm no different than this tree or this green sprig that is like sprouting from like a concrete sidewalk, It was just like, yes, like we are of the same substance. I am in an earth body. Like we have these, in Baltimore, we have this really large exhaust stack out of the sewers, and it's like constant steam, always just like coming up. I always just ask, like, can you blow the other way so that I can like get home without smelling or like being contaminated with this vapor? and I will literally see the vapor shift direction. And so that's the kind of playfulness that I'm referring to. It's like you're playing with the elements of this planet. You're playing with the life force of this living system.
I wish people could see my face. I'm smiling ear to ear. Because this is one of the pieces that I feel gets hijacked by new age commercialism that is an ancient wisdom. And I was really reflecting on when you talked about the tree and the brick, and I thought, oh man, I think that is a benefit of growing up where I grew up in Humboldt, where there's way more land than pavement. And it's wild. Being able to firsthand see the power of nature and be surrounded by it and go play in it, be the entertainment of climbing on trees and playing in the dirt and make believe around all of that. I think that childhood experiencing of that power and wonder, it just came together for me as you were sharing. I think what got implanted in me is in the unconscious is you're a part of that. Issa and I just spoke about ancient wisdom growing up in the Native American ceremonies, being with the elements of water and fire and the ground and these different sacred instruments that are used to conduct the ceremony. But, these indigenous, right? Pre-colonial. And it really reminds me of this poem that I read this morning, two twins in the womb, one talking to the other. And one twin says, what do you think is after death or after the birth? And one twin goes, nothing. It's dead. That's the end of it. And the other twin goes, I don't know. I think maybe there's something beyond it. And the other twin says, you're crazy. No, nothing. And then the one twin goes, well, what do you think about the mother? The other twin goes, you believe in the mother? That's ridiculous. There's nothing. Where's the mother? I can't see her. The other twin goes, I think she's all around us. I think we're a part of her. It makes me emotional.
Yeah.
Because I think it's something we forget so easily. In that concrete jungle, the words of Bob Marley, of that. She's all around us. And we are of her. And I think that that's the power of what you're talking about. And for change, right? To start from that place, knowing that you are a part of this whole thing, which is also quantum physics, right? One substance. It's all energy. It's all quarks. The very base of it all. It's all this great mystery. I think that that's so poetic and beautiful, but in the most grounded way, and that poetry can explain more than prose sometimes. Yeah. Thank you for letting me go on that little rant.
No, that was so perfect.
What do you think from all your work with people and this beautiful work that you diligently do with the Akasha and beyond, what do you think the best piece of advice would be for someone for embracing change?
Another thing I thought about with change is the seasons that change. I've learned to embrace change as a seasonal invitation. I'm moving into this new season, and what does this season bring in for me? And because I've been able to frame it that way, I don't ever feel fixed. It is just a continual opening. And, my opportunity has been to just really learn from that season and listen to the season. Things slow down, people slow down. I don't listen enough because even when the season is like, slow down, stop, like I sometimes feel like, no. I have so much to do. You can't slow me down. I've been learning. I feel like the living system is our living system and our seasons, like they just are.
With weather, we've had a long time experiencing weather as humans. And so we're like, okay, well, when it's cold, you can dress differently, right? When you look at something in your life happening with change, you might not have so much data on it. So you're like, what do I need to understand so that I can dress appropriately, so I can be comfortable in this? And it might take a while. Like you said, the acceptance. If you were to refuse to accept that it's winter and you go out in shorts and flip-flops and a t-shirt, your body's going to have consequences, right?
Yeah.
Because you're saying, like, look at it this way so that you can adjust, so you can accept and possibly even enjoy the winter stroll if you have your big jacket and you have what you need, like, and then know if it's too extreme, no, it's literally a winter ice storm. You need to stay inside or you'll freeze even with the best jacket, right? Like, so I think that's such a clever approach, because Isa and I talk about the range of experiencing change and all the different things that can help, from neuroscience to donuts, right? Now, after talking to you, it's like, oh, it's all part of this living system, this entire ontological lens in which we look at being able to say, like, hey, what if donuts could help you sometimes? What if you need a fucking donut? So what is your favorite donut is the question.
I love this question. Well, I grew up in Chicago. We have Dunkin' Donuts everywhere. And one of my favorite was strawberry frosted.
What is that? Like, you mean like strawberry frosting on top of what kind of donut? Or is that what you mean?
I guess over on top of a glazed donut.
Oh,
yeah, like a strawberry frosting.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Thank you. So you will put it in the show notes. If someone wants to come to you for anything you've mentioned, where can people find you?
My current website is helenvonderheide.com. Everything that someone needs in terms of finding out a little bit more information or wanting to hear a little bit more of something else, like, it's all there. I would say Instagram is probably the only social media that I'm active on, and it's also Helen Vonderheide.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay. Well, thank you so much, friend, for being here with me today, for sharing. I know that you and I could talk and go into each of these little sections we touched on today even deeper. But I encourage people to seek you out and have those informational conversations and take coursework or have a session with you so they can experience it with you directly, as I have. It's been one of the true helpers in my life. Bye for now, friend. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we did it.
Listen, I don't know what we did, but we did it.
Thanks for listening to another episode of The Ripple Affect. We're looking forward to exploring a different facet of change with you next time. If you found value in this episode, please take a second to leave us a review and share with a friend. Every little bit helps the ripple go farther. Thanks for being a part of this experiment with us.
And remember, we're way more connected and deserving than society's false sense of separation dictates us to be. You're not just one person. Your singular efforts do make the collective change possible. We're going to keep showing up, and we'll never get to perfection. But if we allow the process to be the solution, we can trust that small ripples will make big waves.
Changing yourself changes the ripple. And what if a collective almost is good enough?
A special thank you, love, and credit to the magnificent Mia Casasanta for this beautiful music you're listening to right now.
This episode was produced and brought to you by Michelle Asaro, Isa Griffin, and Kiara Maya. It was also edited by Jessica Najunas and Kiara Maya.